Right. How you feeling over there? You looking like you know what I have to say this. I didn't even get to say this off air, but the seeing you in a hood, right, reminds me of when I heard that Eric Adams showed up in a New York State Senate congressional meeting in a hood after the Trayvon Martin incident.
Really? He did that?
I'm dead serious. This was like a whole political stunt. Like
Oh,
him and
man.
like five other representatives walked into the congressional place dressed in a hoodie, fully like engulfed and
Hey,
pulled
yo.
down.
Handling level 1002. Hey,
Yeah,
yo.
that's Eric Adams right there. But here's what I wanted to read. There's a snippet here, New York Times article, which we'll dive into in this show or the next. But I want to read this part right here. It's called. I don't want to miss the. You know why I don't want to move? I don't want to scroll up because I don't want to lose my spot. So I'm going to look at the title from another area. We must stop police abuse of black men. Published in 2014. This was a opinion piece written in the New York Times by Eric L. Adams,
2014?
2014. And here's the snippet. Hours after coming out of the police academy, I was told something as a new rookie officer. You'd rather be tried by 12 jurors than carried by six pallbearers. And in my impressionable first days, I saw officers leave the precinct every day, touching the lockers of their fallen brothers. They started their shifts on a defensive, thinking about protecting themselves as opposed to the communities they served. Regardless of the complexion of those communities, one of my white fellow officers once told me that if he saw a white individual with a gun, he took extra care for himself and the individual. When he saw a black individual with a gun, he took care only for himself.
Oh, that's cap. Nah.
It's cap?
Yeah. I never
What does
happened.
that mean? What do you
I mean,
mean
that
that's
never
cap?
happened. I mean, he's lying. He's giving you a political talking point. So now he's, he's going off the race agenda. He's going off the police brutality. He's running with that. What year is this?
2014.
2014, man.
Year of the Trayvon Martin.
This is the problem, man. You're playing the political games. Trayvon Martin, at the heels of Trayvon Martin, it's in your best interest to connect stuff to a form of inequality. So it's just, he's doing it again. Here we go again.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We're back in the building. Drinks with a nobody. I'm Macho. That's Savory. Savory is
What
like
up?
MJ right now, about to score 60. He's a little under the weather, but he's
But I'm here.
still showing out.
I'm
He's
active.
showing out.
I'm
He's showing
live.
tough.
It's still here. I don't know what it is, but put your mask on, guys. Put your mask on. If you're watching us
Thank
now,
goodness this is
put
virtual.
those
Thank
masks
goodness
on.
this is virtual. All right. So what do we got?
So, hi, let's open this up, man. So we got Eric Adams. We're going to talk about the NYC's mayor's pass, right? And his pass involves what? Policing, right? So to open this up, let's get right to it, Macho. Let's hear your thoughts on this. So we both grew up in New York. Just a reminder, anybody who's new here. So I got a question for you,
Some
Macho.
people on TikTok don't believe I grew up in New York.
Oh, man.
That's
TikTok
serious.
is an interesting place, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. TikTok's a roller coaster, man. But my question to you is, have you had any encounter, right? Any situation, let's say, with the NYPD growing up in New York City? If so, give the viewers and myself a little snippet of how that might have looked for you.
That's right. Inner city talks. You came out the gate swinging.
Yeah, right away.
Yes,
Let's get to it.
I had an interaction with the police as a kid. And my first interaction, my first encounter that I remember is I was a teenager, high as hell. I was high as hell off the reefer.
Hmm.
And I was walking through Jefferson Park, which is like maybe about 12 blocks from where I grew up at on 100th Street. And they have like it's like where the community pool is. You know, I call it like it's where people bathe. The community hot tub is where like everybody kind of
People be
gathered.
pissing in there and all that.
All facts, having sex,
Yeah,
all that
just
stuff.
just FYI.
Um,
So
That's why I don't like community pools. I'm appalled by it. I've been to a community pool once. I digress. Anyways,
yeah.
I was walking through there. It was nighttime. Hood as hell. Jefferson is hood, by the way. A lot of stuff goes on down there. It's right next to a projects. I forget what that projects is called, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, we're rolling through there, me and my two buddies, and we're smoking weed. We're wandering. We're high as hell, and 4 or 5 officers approach us in uniform, and it was night. It was dark. It was probably like 10 a.m. And they said, "Where you guys going?" So one of my buddies was like, "What do you mean where we're going?" So, yeah, I just asked you, "Where you guys going? What are you guys doing? What are you guys up to?" Just walking around. They said, "You're walking around a park that's closed after dusk. What are you doing here? You know?" So they proceeded to step closer to us, and they started standing around in a semicircle. You had white officers, you had Hispanic officers, and I remember a black officer.
Hmm.
And I'm Hispanic. One of my other friends is Hispanic, and one of my friends is black. And like I said, we're all high as hell. I'm telling we just finished, probably smoked the joint like 2 seconds earlier. We still probably smell like weed. And they're like, "All right, cool. You guys have anything on you that you shouldn't have?" And my boy's like, "What do you mean? Well, what would we have? We're just walking around the park."
Yeah, acting dumb.
Anyways,
What kind of question is that?
needless to say, the guys just simply said, "This is a high crime area. Do yourselves a favor. If you don't want to get stopped and frisked, do yourselves a favor and get out of this park." And
You
they
don't want to
did
get stopped
not,
and frisk, he said?
and they did not frisk us. We had drugs on us.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, we probably still smell like weed. We're teenagers, we're kids.
That's
And they
crazy.
did not, they literally looked at us and said, listen here. I'm gonna tell you this. Don't come around here again at this time.
You know
Because
what?
in New York City, parks are closed after dusk.
Yeah. Still people like maybe sleeping there, homelessness or stuff like that. Yeah, sometimes you see.
Crime,
But
prostitution, drugs.
yeah. Yo, he said that story sounds familiar.
Oh yeah, of course. You
He
if
said,
you ever if
he said you're
and Lucky
I
Charms
thought he was saying
knows
you were
because
probably with him.
he grew up here. Lucky Charms grew up here, right? So my whole thing is if you're in a park after dusk, everybody knows if you're from the city, you cannot be in a park when it's dark because the boys, what was what we called them growing up, the boys will be circulating around there because a lot of shady stuff happens there after dark.
Yeah. So I was gonna share the story, which I'm just gonna share one more related to what you're saying. But did I ever tell you about the story in the 167 crib? I did, right? When the
Oh,
cops pulled up.
off air. I think it
Yeah,
was.
that one was wild. But I'm gonna go to another shift. I'm gonna keep it on the weed topic. So me and my boy, I won't name him now, even though I don't think he'll mind, but
You're not
we
dropping
would
names?
we were working. We used to work at the end of our shift. We used to go to a block in the Heights and cop. By the way, I wasn't a regular smoker, like literally out like randomly every so often. But we went, all right, and it was a gate in the bottom. We'll put the money, they'll put it in the bottom, they'll be in the basement. We take it and we leave. Yo, tell me how me and my boy are walking and we see the car. We're walking to the corner, all right? We see the car already, but you can't turn around and run. You're in the middle of it,
Oh,
and
if you
I just
do,
started acting normal.
but
And it
if
was
you
a
run,
DT
it's
car.
over for you.
Yeah, it was a detective car. DT was those black cars. Dude with a jersey came out, and some other guy who was not low key. But anyways, they came right forward, and it was like, "Oh, what you got there?" And I said, "Nothing." All right. He checked my pocket. All right. He took it out and then he said, "What you got in your book bag?" I had a book bag at the time. I was going to school and I was working. He took my book bag. He opened up the book bag. I will never forget this. I will never forget this. He opened the book bag up. He came and I had the book, The Secret and The Alchemist.
That also reveals how old you were, by the way. The
Yo,
Alchemist.
the Secret and The Alchemist. So he opened that joint. He looked out
You're
and he
like a
said,
freshman in high school?
yo, and I quote, guys, he said, "You fucking read?" Exactly what he told me. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I read. I just, every once in a while I enjoy it. But I was like kind of scared. My heart was beating. I was like, man, I'm about to go to jail, whatever. Yo, he ended up taking it and said, "You're gonna have to go get again." And he left. Did nothing to us. It was DTs. They were looking, and it's funny because they were working on a case. They're
Who
working on a
was it?
much
By the
bigger
way,
case.
it doesn't matter, but what was the demographic? Was he white?
It was a white and a Hispanic
And he
cop.
said, "Do you read?" Yeah.
Yeah. The white guy said, "Oh, you." The Hispanic dude is the one that told me. I remember. Yo, you read?
He said, "You read?" The
And I was
Hispanic cop?
like, I was just stuck. Literally, no, they took it themselves. They literally took it and left. So you're gonna have to go get again. Of course, we didn't go back again. We just went home. So
All right. So, wow, that's amazing. We could talk about this all day. And also, anyone who is watching right now, please share your experience. Your first time experience with the police, if you dare. Share it. Go ahead. Have at it. Anyone watching us on replay, do the same. Put it in the comment section as well. All right. So today we're getting into everything Eric Adams. Who is this dude? Where is he from? What is his family values? What is his past beliefs? His time as a borough president. And then we'll hint you guys off with where he might take NYC as mayor. So keep it locked for this next segment. All right.
all right, time
The
to keep the one running.
infamous Eric L. Adams. Listen, Savory, I've retained so much information last night on who this dude is. There was a lot of things I didn't even know about him. A lot of
Yeah,
things I
yeah.
didn't know about him, right? Never heard of this guy before. Never heard of him. But he's
He
well
got quite the
known.
history though. Yeah, he got quite the
Yeah,
history.
he's well known in Brooklyn.
I
He's a
respect
hot
it.
shot. He is absolute hot shot. Um, he's known in the past as the little tough guy.
Hmm.
As a teenager, he was known as the little tough guy. Why? Because let's start at the very beginning, shall we? At the very
Please.
beginning, Savory, he was born in 1960. I got some of my sources from Wiki and some other various sources because the news would always mention not only where he was from, but also mention his history as a police officer. Anyways, 1960 he was born. By 1975 he was 14, or 1974 he's 14 years old. He had, before I get to that detail, his mom and dad are from Alabama. They transitioned. They moved here in the 50s, and his mom, I forgot, she had multiple jobs, and then his father was a butcher but had alcohol abuse issues.
Hmm.
He's one of six children. He's one of six. I think he's the fourth in chronological order.
Okay.
and he had a rough upbringing because it was so tough that he would have to take like a knapsack of clothes to school when he was a kid because he wasn't sure if they were going to get evicted from where they were.
Mm,
So like he would go to school, he could come back and they don't have an apartment anymore. So we have to take some clothes with him to school. That's how poor they were.
jeez.
And then his mom had enough and she started saving up money. She bought a house in Southside Jamaica, Queens. And as he grew up,
Nice.
1974, he joins this infamous gang known as the Seven Crowns.
Mm,
Seven Crowns, and I say infamous, is because one, I didn't know about this. This is very rarely mentioned. And I can see why, because when I looked into the Seven Crowns, it was ran by, or whenever you look up Seven Crowns, you're going to come up with the Furtado brothers.
mm. Oh, okay,
And
okay, okay.
you know who they are, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know they were connected to that too.
So they were a different kind of gang before this, but when they grew older, and then when they took over, they were the Seven Crowns. But they were always a part of them. They went from Saigons to Seven Crowns, and now they had divisions. They had many different divisions around the city, but when we think Seven Crowns, it's always going to go back. If you wiki Seven Crowns, it's going to go back and it's going to pop up Furtado brothers. The
Mm,
Furtado brothers are huge, bro. If you look at the rap game in New York City, you can't separate the Furtado brothers from it. Certain politicians were funded by the Furtado brothers. These were cocaine boys. They started off with weed, they went from there, and I see you pulling up the video there. Let's show the audience
yeah, that's
the
just the
Furtado
picture. They
brothers
can
right there.
see who we're talking about here.
Yep.
It's a few
These
clips up
guys are
top, but
no
these are it
joke.
right here. Okay.
This is Lance with the glasses. That's Lance Furtado. And I forgot, I think this is Tony, or Tony was the oldest. I always forget because there's three of them. There were three brothers. And these guys are no joke. No joke. In this interview right here, that Savory's showing right here, in this interview with Vlad TV, and he's showing some more pictures here. In this interview in Vlad TV, they were laughing, they were joking, and Lance goes on to say, and I kid you not, Lance goes on to say, "Hey, we love life, we love playing, we love joking around, but we just want your audience to know we're always serious."
Mm,
Like he had to make sure he said that. But they're both laughing. Everybody's laughing. Everybody, in the interview. But we want, we like joking around. We love life. But I want your audience to know we're
so
always
Eric
serious.
Adams was part of this gang here,
Oh yeah,
started by them.
during
Okay,
its early
interesting.
stages, as it was growing more and more infamous. Now, 14 years old, joined the Seven Crowns, and I wanted to read this op-ed real quick that he wrote in 2014 that I started the show off with today. And he simply said this: As a 15-year-old living in South Jamaica, Queens, I was arrested on a criminal trespass charge after unlawfully entering and remaining in a home of an acquaintance. Officers took me to the 103rd precinct, the same precinct where an unarmed Sean Bell was later shot and killed by the police. That's irrelevant, by the way.
Yeah, he's just
Sean Bell incident happened in 2006, or I may be
he's
wrong
just
on that.
throwing that in there to connect with people, the political points. He's just now
Yeah,
throwing a
this
race
was
card and
1975, bro. How you coming out of the woodwork years later, the same precinct, as if so it took 30 years to have another controversial issue? You and and Sean Bell, come on, do better than that. And brought me into a room in the basement. They kicked me in the groin repeatedly out of every part of my body. That's what they targeted. Then I spent the night in Spofford Juvenile Detention Center. He didn't just spend a night; he spent a few nights
mm,
from everywhere else that I was reading. And it was him and several other gang members that went to juvenile that night. And it was a black officer that intervened on this interaction. And he said at that moment he realized he wanted to be a police officer at
oh
15
wow,
years old.
wow, that's an
So,
interesting story.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So I wanted we already know he's one of six siblings. You know that, he was born in Brownsville, New York, 1960, moved to South Side, Jamaica, Queens. Mom bought a house there. And what is his past beliefs? Well, his past beliefs is he believes some of the things were ignored. So let's look at New York City real quick in 1975 during the time of his incident, right? Let's look at what the city was dealing with. And I found an article here, and I want to show some pictures for the audience of what New York City was like in 1975. PBS article here. I got it shared here. Oh, we got a finger jab here. Did you press the what was the All right.
Oh,
So Um, New York City in the late 1970s was plagued by severe economic and political troubles, unlike any city inhabitants had experienced before. Faced with economic stagnation, industrial decline, and the looming threat of bankruptcy, the city of New York responded by laying off city workers and cutting municipal services such as sanitation and after-school programs. So the Furtado brothers simply in that interview said, being a police officer, you were paid almost below minimum wage during that time in the 70s, right? The city's already high unemployment rates got higher, and many middle class families, more than 820,000 people, fled to the suburbs in a movement known as white flight, desperate for jobs. Others, angry at the cut in social services and feeling neglected by the government, turned to violence. So there are a whole bunch of things that are going on here, but more specifically, these are
wow.
some of the pictures and images I want to show of the formative years of what Eric Adams probably witnessed in his time in the 70s. This is what New York City
Yeah, to
looked
capture it
like.
in the 70s. Yeah, wow.
These are some of the pictures here. This is Greenpoint, Brooklyn. A store, some establishments. Doesn't look pretty, doesn't look neat. Nightlife there. Some of the establishments, some of the business.
No
This
joke,
is a
man.
firefighter. You see some folks here. I mean, wow. Wow.
Yeah, wow,
Where
wow.
it This is during a blackout. This is what it looked like after the aftermath of the blackout,
Yeah,
1977.
70s in New York was crazy.
Oh, it was bad. Look at this. It's atrocious. There goes the nightlife picture, and it went back to the top. So, this is what some of the formative years of what Eric Adams had to witness during his time as a teenager, and what he got arrested for. Essentially, when he was a part of this gang, he was a collector. He collected money.
Mm.
So he
He
was in
ran
this.
he ran their errands, collected
He ran
money,
their
trying to get
errands,
you.
collected money, and I guess he had an issue with a person who didn't want to pay up. So I guess cops got called, and obviously they knew who Seven Crowns was, so they roughed him up in the basement in the precinct. Now, do we agree? I don't agree with it, but it was don't neglect to mention that detail, because that key detail gives me the whole
Yeah.
entire story. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. Like that gives you the why behind what actually happened, why you were there, and it's more context rather than a police officer just walking in and kicking you in the groin. You know what I'm saying? So,
Exactly.
and again, remember, it seems like he's shifting a lot of his stories to the narrative a bit, right? So I won't I'm not accusing him of lying. I just think he's likely because of his political career adding convenient details
Oh,
that would resonate with people his political career. That's just my opinion there. Because they're,
and
like the Sean Bell, like
yeah,
again, like you said, why would you mention that, right? That only shows me that you care about your political career and you're trying to resonate with people who are connecting with the base of Sean Bell, with the kind of like BLM before it was actually BLM, but when it was like the movement of cops and this, and you're trying to connect with that, which is why you do
yeah.
it.
He's absolutely adored, and we're going to talk about that on Friday. At him as a mayor, but right now we're getting into the past story. So his past beliefs, he believed that in this opinion piece that white officers or officers of different demographics police differently. And I have a video here
Hmm.
that I want to play when he talks about this. So I'm going to share that video real quick for the audience.
endurance, right? Which is really an important issue. When I talk on college campuses, I tell college kids this: persistence, endurance, discipline is really important, right?
No, so true, so true.
But I'm sure a certain amount of brilliance too. So you've been obviously on both sides of this sort of thing, both as a police officer within the department and as a public official. How do we begin to sort out this unfortunate situation? For example, do the cops have a legitimate grievance with Mayor de Blasio? What's going on there?
Well, the first order, I believe, is to understand that it's complex. Many people think that there's a very simplistic response to how do we have public safety and how do we ensure that our police officers are safe, and it's not. It is extremely complex, particularly when you...
It's extremely complex. He also goes on in this interview to illustrate the ideas that police officers police differently depending on the demographic.
So he goes into depending on
he
the
goes into that.
demographics. Wow.
He says that, well, and this was the infamous, this interview pissed me off because it was that interview in 2015. This was in 2015 where he called NYPD being trigger happy cops. How do you get away with that? The stats
Trigger
don't
happy
support him. The stats at the time did not support.
Well, the political core has to support you, not the stats, right? This is why this political game gets tricky because they're going to end up saying what the core wants to hear. Because remember, they would be pushed by the local media, by the people in their party, especially if they're in power. So people in the outskirts are not really going to be looking at the stats, and they're just like, all right, he's trying to help. Right, that's kind of the narrative. Oh, he's just trying to help, So
and here's how he, as just shortly after. Well, before I play this video, real quick, is when he was in the academy, just in the academy, he wasn't even a sworn officer. He was already causing controversy. Was that when he was in the academy, a woman in the Bronx who was mentally ill was coming at a officer with a meat cleaver from in her apartment. So they shot her and they killed her. Meat cleaver coming at her. And he said he has some remarks about it. So they wrote an opinion piece about Eric Adams not too long ago. This was written in this article here by the New York Times was written. I don't see the date here. It was written in June 19th, 2021, updated November 8th, 2021. And it's called Keep an Eye on This Guy. Inside Eric Adams' Complicated Police Career. Guy wasn't even out of the academy yet. And he had criticism. He was openly controversial.
That means he was a politician before he was an actual cop.
10 years
That's
into
what that shows you.
10 years into his tenure as a police officer, he ran for public office as a police officer. So anyways, I wanted to share this campaign that he had really briefly. You guys try not to laugh, but here's this campaign that he had while he was a state senator for New York.
Doors from my house, I realize how important my crusade is of removing illegal handguns off the streets of New York. Hi, I'm New York State Senator Eric Adams, and for 22 years I wore a bulletproof vest and stood on the street corners and protected children and families in the city of New York. I'm asking you to join me in this crusade of removing illegal handguns off our streets and out of our homes. Please come and join me inside my house as I show you how simple items such as bamboo paper can be an indicator of marijuana use, or a cut of straw can be an indicator of using cocaine.
Let's go into the house. This is
Empower
hilarious.
parents on how to search a room.
So he's inside.
He's inside the house. Right, just give a quick. So he's encouraging the parents of a household to be able to search their son, cousins, or friends they have over with their bags to look for drugs. So it's kind of empowering the parents to be the police and kind of monitor these things in that way, right? So it's like he shows you creative ways to look for drugs, guns, and etc.
Yeah, so he goes through the house.
Inside their home. It's imperative that you should know what's inside your household. And no one can state that you can't search a room in your own home. You write the Constitution. There are no First Amendment rights inside your household. It is
I think
your
he meant to say
obligation and
Fourth Amendment.
responsibility not only to protect the child that may
It's
be
freedom of
using
speech. I
an
don't think that's
illegal
what he means to
drug
say.
or carrying an illegal gun, but you also have to protect the members of the household that your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun could be hidden, a small caliber weapon could be hidden inside a jewelry box.
So he goes through the house here. Looks like his home office. I just briefly wanted to show that.
Yeah,
It
he's
looks like his
politically
home office,
driven
and he
since
goes
early.
around the house. It goes around the room searching. You find drugs,
Yeah, he goes
marijuana,
through a
crack
pillow. He
pipes.
goes through a
He goes
pillow
through a
here. He goes
pillow,
through a bed. Yeah, it's just
and he's walking the audience through. Parents specifically that don't be afraid to go through your kid's room,
So
essentially,
so
which is
Macho,
not
what
a
does
bad intent. It's not a bad intention, but I
yeah,
think
but
it's
what
also very presumptuous as to like, are parents not involved? You're basically saying parents are not involved without saying parents are not involved.
yeah, I agree. And what does that tell you really quick about him? Like what you get from that, like from his past? Like, does that
Well,
show you anything?
you're not dealing with the issue.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with the issue. You don't the idea is you're avoiding what the issue really is. Kids are
Mhm.
getting guns, kids are getting drugs, kids are getting, you want the parents to be the officer, which is fine, but you're not addressing the issue as to how they got into this
Yeah,
life.
and in the context, he's always politically driven, I'm realizing, because in that
Yeah.
context, that was probably a good thing at that time, right? Like this next video I'm gonna play, and I asked you off air, like, how would it go if he does this kind of campaign, which is called Stop the SAG? How would that go if he does that today? Right. And again,
Yeah.
you said they'll support him. I said possibly, not sure. But the point is, he's in context of what's happening politically. Let me play that.
Go ahead. What a finger jab. Wrong button.
All right, so stop the SAG. You see the SAG. By the way, you sag
Yeah.
the pants?
Never.
Yeah, I sag
My
my
mom would
pants.
never allow me to sag my pants.
Yeah, ninth grade, I sagged my pants.
What will be the manifestations?
I don't know why I sagged my pants. I look back, I'm like, what was I doing?
The campaign is already successful. And an issue that was ignored and we became used to is now on the forefront. Free people should not duplicate the behavior of those who are incarcerated. And we should never
There it
restrict
is.
one while community.
This will probably be looked at as discriminatory and racist.
At this point, yeah,
Right.
in today's
Yeah, I
era.
think at
Yeah.
this point. Because
But
remember,
again,
that
he's
was the
black.
style that came from jail too. But he is black. He is a Democrat in New York, so he has more leeway to actually do his things. But I just don't think he'll go there today because he's politically savvy. The man is politically savvy. So
And
anything I'm learning.
the other note here, there's a lot to cover here, but I'm briefly going to go through some of these quick highlights that I wrote down, and that is this. He was a registered Republican at one point in his career when he ran. He ran for public office as a police officer. So a lot of his fellow officers did not believe that his focus was on the job. A lot of his fellow
Mm.
officers thought that he was somewhere else.
Yeah,
That
of course, he had
the other
ambitions.
yeah. He also
got
had
ambitions.
dyslexia. So he coined a phrase. He went from D's to the Dean list. He joined the NYPD 84, retired in 2006. In 2006, he was elected state senator, and after state senate, he ran for borough president unopposed twice. Won 90% of the vote the first time, 80% of the vote the second time. This guy has had the roadway painted for him. He said the reason why he registered as a Republican is because he wanted to address the issues against the Democrat Party, and when he lost, he argued that there was some fraudulent ballots there. This was way back when. He started many awareness campaigns like evaluating racial bias within the department. He would strong arm the department, citing that if you don't hire certain black officers to be at high level ranking officials, he would give the department a bad grade. He started 100 black officers who care. He was a president of another thing. This is all while he was a police officer.
NYPD chief?
He was an NYPD captain, which
Captain.
would have
All right,
been
so
very hard
there's
for
your
him.
answer, Lucky Charms, captain. All right.
He wanted to be a chief. He was painting his way to become a chief, but it was very hard for him when he was saying such controversial things. When as a police officer, as a captain, as a lieutenant, he was very vocal on what police behaviors were on the street. The Lima case, the famous Adjuan Lima, the Amadou Diallo case. He was vocal. He was in front of the cameras. He was like,
An
how do you
ambitious
speak up
guy. Wow.
against how do you speak up against your organization publicly when you're not really dealing with it internally? And many officers, particularly this New York Times, keep an eye on this guy, would say he wouldn't deal with this internally. He dealt with this more publicly.
Yeah.
He obviously has stopped the SAG. He was never married. He had one son. He supported the Nation of Islam, which the Nation of Islam here in New York City was known as anti-Semites. He's made anti-Semite comments, saying that a representative in the Bronx, a Puerto Rican man, he said something to the extent that it reveals a lot when you, instead of marrying a Latina, you marry a Jewish white woman. How you get away from that? The other thing is he supported same-sex rights, which was a big thing. Obviously, that was a big thing for him in 2011. He's very big on race. Like I said, I opened the show. He walked in before a Senate hearing in New York City with a hoodie on after the Trayvon Martin case. He's very much opposed to gentrification. Very much opposed.
And on that note, let me play that one more video on this
Go ahead.
gentrification, because I think it would be good so people can see, get a little life to what we're talking about here.
And that was this one is the last topic of that we're covering him, because again, there's a lot to cover about him, Eric Adams, and he's adored. According to Jewish Insider, they know of his anti-Semitic statements, but over the years he's evolved. So, like a lot of the Jewish people, Jewish Insider wrote an article piece on Eric Adams and supports him. He's widely adored in the city. They love him.
Oh yeah, definitely. So on that gentrification, let's play this clip really quick. You guys can see, get an idea.
Not only hijacking your apartments and displacing your living arrangements, they displaced your conversations and said the things that are important to you are no longer important, and they decide what's important and what's not important. Go back to Iowa, you go back to Ohio. New York City belongs to the people that was here and made New York City what it is.
Mayoral hopeful Eric Adams' impassioned opinion on.
And to also add to that, he also said that you're not the Christopher Columbus. People existed here before. I mean, I can go all day.
The man is very politically driven. If there's anything I'm getting from his past, Macho, is that his ambition when it comes to politics overtook his talking points and narratives. So it's hard to see what he really believes. Because when somebody moves positions and they're so political for 20 plus years, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. So this is why we want to bring you the mayor's pass now. So on Friday, when we go to the actual things he's doing, you can actually take it from a perspective of his past and who he really is, right? Because it's easy for me to say things, but what kind of life did I live past 20 years, right? Just give our audience that.
And one last controversy with this guy was there was many controversy that he didn't even live in Brooklyn. He owns a house in Brooklyn, but he doesn't live there. He doesn't live in Brooklyn. Many people are citing that he actually lived in Fort Lee, New Jersey. He owns a co-op there with his partner. He's never been married before. Again, he could establish domicile, which again, for those who know what establishing domicile, because he has a house here. He bought a house. He's renting it out to tenants. He could run for public office here. But my whole thing is if you are really caring about people, why don't you live in the borough that you're a president over? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I'm not against you living in Fort Lee. You want to have a better life. That's fine. But run for public office in New Jersey, for that matter. You live there. But again,
good point.
He sees public ambition here. He sees something. And according to Jewish Insider, is that Eric Adams is a uniter. So something to look ahead here. I'll just give you guys a snippet. Is they cite him as being a uniter. So my question is, why run for public office if you're really a uniter?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And then I want to leave the people with this. Mind you, we're going to pick this up and we're going to go now deeper into his current status when it comes to who he is now and what he's running for now, right? So for our last segment, this is to lead us on to the next episode. Check this out, right? This was in, what year was this? 2013, right? On his election, right? he ran, right? I'm gonna point this really quick. He
On de
ran
Blasio,
on
right?
what? De Blasio ran, right, on saying that inequality is the biggest challenge that faces, right? And what's interesting about that, right? If you go to Eric Adams' website, right, and this is just as food for thought here, so you guys can stay tuned in for the craziness that happens in our inner cities. Right now, what we have here, this is Eric Adams straight from his website, 2021, 25 inefficiencies that lead to inequality. So from 2013 to now, have you done nothing? No. Let me propose this, guys. As we come to a close of today's episode, let me propose this. We're going through his past to really challenge what he really believes. If you have three candidates back to back running on the same promises, this is the things we're going to tackle with different topics moving forward. We have same politicians giving us the same race narrative, same inequality narrative. Now you got to ask yourself, wait, but what's the progress? Are we ever going to challenge this? Are we ever going to have an honest conversation? Or is the next person after Eric Adams going to say we have more inequalities to solve and we're going to vote them in again? Let's be smarter, guys. So,
Until
yeah,
Friday,
thank you everybody for joining. Appreciate
we'll be
y'all.
right back here.
We'll be right back Friday, man.
See y'all then.